Alright, hi guys, welcome back to this episode of From the Sounding Board, the section where I take your questions and answer them. So in this episode, we have a question from Emma on Facebook. And Emma's question is, I hear a click when EQing my kick drum, but it doesn't always happen. But I don't normally hear a click on the kick when not mic'd. So I want to know if the mic is more sensitive to hear than I, or it's the fault of my mic. All right. So this is quite a common experience, and a lot of sound engineers will tell me that when they solo a channel on the mixer and they listen, they hear things that they don't hear with their own ears. And they will often start to second guess themselves and think, is there something wrong with the mic? Is there something wrong with my ears, etc.? Now, this comes from the fact that in live sound, the rule is that we try to get the microphone as close as possible to the sound source in question, right? And the reason for that is that we want to try and pick up only that sound source. So for example, we want the kick drum mic to pick up only the kick drum so that it can be EQ'd, compressed separately, and then balanced with the rest of the kit. It's also the reason that we use directional microphones, right? Cardioids, hypercardioids, and so on. So as a result of this, we place microphones in locations that we would never place our ears. A good example of this is when you're reinforcing grand piano, right? You put the microphones inside the piano. Now, you'd never listen with your head inside the piano, right? That would be a terrible way to experience a concert. But because of our needs in live sound, the need to get the best possible signal to noise ratio, the best possible isolation, we have no choice but to place our mics in these places. So as a result, you will often hear things through the microphone that you don't hear with your naked ears. All right? Now, in the case of the kick drum specifically, the kick drum actually contains two sounds, all right? The sound of the kick drum has, first of all, there's a thud, okay? And the thud comes from the sound of the shell, right? This is the sound that you typically hear when you listen to a kick drum or floor tom acoustically, right? It's the thoo that you get from the shell resonating. There is actually a second sound, and this is a higher pitched sound, and I call it, and a lot of sound engineers call it, the click. And the click is the sound of the beater hitting the head, right? And if I punch my hand, you can actually hear what it sounds like. All right? That's the click. So the sound of the kick drum, there is a low sound, which is around 80 hertz. So 80 hertz is the classic frequency that you boost if you want more chest from the kick drum. And there is this click. All right? Now, that high-pitched sound is what gives the definition to the drum, right? Without that, it'd just be a sort of low-pitched rumble. And this click is quite important because it allows the kick drum to actually cut through the mix. And if you want to experience what it sounds like, go and listen to any number of heavy metal records, okay? With heavy metal, there's a lot going on in the mix, right? You have 3 or even sometimes more guitars with a lot of overdrive on them. You've got bass, which a lot of times is played with a pick. And as a result, the kick drum needs some help to cut through all of that. And as a result, with heavy metal, they will often mix the kick very toppy, right? And in some of this music, the kick will actually sit on top of the bass guitar in terms of the frequency selection. So this is the reason why you are hearing this, Emma, because it's actually part of the sound of the drum, especially when you close mic it. So the question then is, what if you don't want that, right? You still want to maintain the isolation of the kick drum, but you want less of the click. The secret is to deal with it through mic choice and position before you touch the EQ. All right, so the first thing that you can do is you can actually move the microphone away from the playing head, right? So move it away from the drummer towards the front or resonant head of the drum. Now, you still want to keep the microphone inside the shell of the drum, okay? And I assume that you've either got a hole in the front head or you've removed the front head so that you can put the mic inside the drum. As soon as the mic comes out of the drum, you start to get a lot of bleed from the rest of the kit. So move the microphone away from the drummer, and what you will find is that the shell sound becomes more prominent and the click becomes less prominent. Another thing that you can do is you can actually change the angle of the mic, all right? Aiming the mic at the spot where the beater hits the head of the drum will result in the clickiest tone. If you don't like that, just aim the mic off axis, right? You can aim it left, right, or up, down, but play around with that and adjust until you get the tonal balance that you want. Another thing that you can do is you can actually choose a different mic, okay? Some microphones that are not kick drum specific, for example, the SM57 or even the SM58, they have a bit more high frequency response, and a lot of them, they have a presence peak around 2 to 4 kilohertz. Choosing a mic that is specifically designed for kick drum, something like the Shure Beta 52, the AKG D112, etc., these will give you a rounder tonality. Another thing that you can do is you can make sure that the drummer is using a felt beater, right? A lot of drummers who like that real attacky kick drum sound, they'll use either a hard plastic or even a wooden beater on their kick drum. So as a result, changing that out can give you a more round tonality. And you know, usually drummers will be aware of this and they'll adjust it based on the type of music that they play, right? Music like classic rock, jazz, fusion. Very often the kick drum sound is more muted, and it's very, very different. In traditional jazz, for example, right, the kick drum is much, much less dominant than it is in say classic rock or metal or something like that. So try all of these things before touching the EQ, because any attempt to EQ the click out will inevitably result in a kick drum sound that is quite muddy. All right? So Emma, I hope that answers your question. Thanks very much for getting in touch. And if any of you have questions, please do get them to me. You can send them to me in the comments section of any video on Facebook or on my website, which is glbproductions.com. So until the next video, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.